Serious. So you have got a personal experience of grief. That's why you're here tonight. So if you don't mind, if you could take us back in time to that point and just sort of just introduce that to the room, if that's okay.
Yeah, it's quite hard speaking about. I think if anyone's read the book, I know you have because you forgot to bring it to get it signed. I've obviously spoken about my dad quite a lot in it. I was 18 in Carlisle, kind of out of nowhere. He goes on holiday. It was the first holiday I've never been on with him. I had played football, so I couldn't go. He went on holiday, came back at a DVT in his leg. I thought that was it. Hadn't worn socks properly, remember the old short socks used to get on the legs. And that was about it really. We thought nothing else of it. And I was playing football and I never got told anything. And then we found out literally about a month later that he had cancer and it was everywhere and spread everywhere, and that was kind of, that's it.
What age were you at this point?
18.
Okay.
So at 18, just signed professionally at Halifax, moved down there for the first time, everything was going great, trying to be a professional footballer, which I wanted to do before, and then we get that news, and it was kind of like, well, what we're going to do, and turned out the cancer was everywhere. He was going to get chemo and all this, and then just as he was just about to start the chemo, he had a stroke, which kind of then just decimated him, and literally from found out in August, September there's something, I still couldn't tell you the date because I kind of block it out. I couldn't tell you which date it was in September. He passed away.
How was the immediate aftermath, Holty? Because that's such an intense period of emotion, and I know that you probably have took the burden on yourself to look after your sister and your mum during that period as well. So what was that like as an 18-year-old guy? You're trying to break into the football world. Your dad passes away, and you've almost got this sense of responsibility for your mum and your sister as well. How did you cope with that?
I coped with it actually not too bad in terms of the concept of what it was. I was more nervous about how my mum was going to be and how my sister was only 16 at the time. So you kind of worried what she was going to go through. I kind of got my football career, I had a girlfriend at the time, now my wife, and then I kind of had my life going forward, and you look at it and think, well, what are they going to be like? I made the decision to come back on loan. I'd gone back to Halifax, it wasn't working, my head was all over the place. I said to him, look, I maybe need to go loan back to Carlisle. And it was kind of probably the best thing at the right time to do, but the worst thing that I actually done, because it then put me back in the band where I wasn't playing football every day, and I kind of thought about it every 2 seconds, and kind of be like the stories we've heard where you try and switch up, but you never really truly switch up, and it didn't really work. And I tended to go out and I wasn't training, I wasn't getting fit, and it kind of escalated a little bit.
And then, am I right in saying you then left your hometown of Carlisle, right? So,
yeah.
And what was that change of environment like for you? Like, did you need that? Would you advise that for people going through grief, to change your environment?
It was a really weird time in terms of when I got the phone call that everyone gets to say that he's passed away. I hadn't slept for weeks properly. Most of the time I stayed at Faith's house because it got me out of the environment of being not in that environment. And I always remember the phone call going, it was about 2:30 in the morning, the phone rings, the old school phone, we had to dial, it took you 4 hours to go around.
How old are you?
Yeah, it was a long time ago. Before mobiles, when you got the old, it rang, you had to walk down the stairs and pick it up. I remember it going off, and I think we both knew what the phone call was. And I walked down, it was my brother on the phone, and said, oh, he's gone. So I always refused to be there in the hospital in the night. I didn't stay there once because I knew that's predominantly when they die, so that I'm not going to be there. So I remember getting the phone call about 2:30, I think it was in the morning, and I went to sleep, and it was the best sleep I've had for months because it was done. And I was done, I could sleep, it was finished, the chapter was done, blah blah. And then you wake up, and then the worst thing I wanted to do in the morning was go around to my mum's house because I knew everyone would be there, my uncles and everyone, and that whole emotion, and it was like, I just didn't want to go. I put it off for ages, and I ended up going around, and as you do, walking the door, everyone's crying, this, that, and the other. And it was just that moment where it's like, that's a realisation, and it was like, it's now real. And I always remember there was a guy that came to the door, Danny his name was, and he knocked on my mum's door, and I answered the door, and he's like, oh, just come to see how your dad was. He'd been mates for like 40 odd years, or it was. Just come to see how your dad was. I said, unfortunately, Danny, he'd passed away last night. And I'd never seen him weak before, in terms of the weakness of what he looked like. And he literally went from like this grown, strong man I've seen for like 18 years to this weak, bumbling, crying guy, and it was like, wow. And the emotion that you then feel like, oh, you had a bit of impact, and it kind of took me back a little bit. It's like, oh God, and he literally cried on the doorstep and disappeared. And it was like, oh my God, this is like now real. And it's difficult, it's a hard thing the next day. But I was more concerned about my mum and my sister and how they were getting on. My brother's a little bit older than me, he'd already had my nephew by then. He was on with his life, but I was more concerned about what they were going to do rather than what I needed to do at that time. So that's life.
And so, where does football come into this then? Like, did you do the I'm going to keep busy thing rather than pausing, reflecting, crying almost? I feel like you just sort of did maybe the old-fashioned thing, dare I say, and just sort of tried to forget about it.
Yeah, I think what happened was I went back. I was on loan at working at the time, so I came back for 3 months, and I had about a month and a half being at working. And I wasn't going to train, I wasn't doing any running. I was kind of with my mates. It wasn't work. I didn't need to do anything. Everyone went out on Fridays, Carl, Saturday, Sunday. That's what you've done. And I go out Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and have a normal week. But it just wasn't working. I just knew that I needed to look at football. And it was only the point where my brother went, look, you might as well go back and play football because that's what he wanted to do anyway. You only ever see me play one game of football, and it's 5 minutes that you ever see me playing a professional game. We played Swansea, it was at Halifax at the time, it was Swansea on a Tuesday night, which if you get a map out, you'll realise how far Swansea is from Carlisle. And it's a long way, it's a hell of a long way.
You hated them even at Norwich.
I hated them then, yeah. And it was the only game you ever see me play. He worked the night shift 10 to 6 in the morning. So he'd done the whole night shift. He got up at 6, he went back to bed for 4 hours. He jumped up and then got in the car and he drove 6.5 hours to Swansea. So then watched me play the game, where I got on for about 4.5 minutes and was actually really crap. Which is like not really me against Swansea. But if you hadn't get to that game, you'd never see me play a game professionally, which was quite iconic. So every time I went to Swansea, I always thought that moment was the old Fetch demo, which was a bit of a dive, not the new one. You see me score, you see me playing that game, you see me score a goal for Halifax against Tranmere, which was unbelievably played at Bradford City, because there was no game, and that was the only thing seen. So, and it's really difficult in moments of football, because like you look at this now, like you look at the moments that I had on that pitch, and like he was a part of any of them. And that's your moments. So it's like you've never seen me get promoted, never seen me score in the Premier League or anything like that. So real things that you do real time always get you. So going back to the stories we heard today, it's like it's moments where people don't think about is when you think. And that's when you've got to stop and go, right, okay, this is why we do it, and this is. And as you get older, you don't have their moments. It's more the kids' moments that kill me when they do this. When Aaron scores 6 against you, like tomorrow, Sean, and then you look and thinking, big derby, Wyndham derby tomorrow, Sean's in charge. They're the moments you wish you'd seen, but you hope you've seen, and it's one of the things, right?
Where does a man called Kenny Lowe come into this, Holty? Because grief happens, you lose your father, and certainly my experience when I lost my mum with Hodgkin's lymphoma in 2007, you almost find values of your parents in other people, and that's what you found in Kenny Lowe, isn't it?
Yeah, I've gone back to Halifax, and sums up my fun project. I've gone back to Halifax.
How many clubs have you been at?
A lot of clubs. A lot of clubs. The kids have had. Evie's had 8 schools. We've had about 15 houses, I think. Basically, what happened was I went back from Halifax, and the manager at the time was Paul Bracewell, who I've never seen since I've left Halifax, which is quite weird when you think how long I've been in football. I've never seen him since, which is quite weird. I went to Halifax, and I was back about a month and a half, and he walked in and said to me, "Son, you're not very good." He wasn't wrong, you're right. He said, you're not very good, we don't think you're given any value, we think you can leave, which as an 18-year-old that just lost your dad 2 months ago is quite a hard thing to take. And I've been on loan at Barrow about a year earlier, so I didn't really know what to do. So anyway, I got the information, came back, had a few phone calls, and then someone told me to ring Kenny Lowe. I had a mobile by then, so I didn't have to do the big dial-up thing. So I rang him and said, look, Halifax is I can leave, what do you want me to do? And he went, look, what did he say to you? I said, well, he told me he's not very good, but he said, well, he's stupid because you are. And he went, right, I'll tell you what to do, leave it with me, and I'll call you back in an hour. So I didn't get anything, I got an hour later, Kenny rings me up and said, right, I've told him his I don't want to say out loud.
It's a charity night.
I know, but that's what he said. I say what he said.
That's a £50 fine.
Yeah, so I told him. That's what he said. He's from the North East, so he's alright with it. So that's what he said. He said, I've told him what a disgrace he is as a manager to actually where you are for letting you go, and told him that he's got the biggest mistake he's ever going to do, and you'll rub it down his neck and you'll come back. So he said, I've spoken to the chairman, don't worry about your wages, you're on more money than you are at Halifax, I only need you to come in 2 days a week and I want you to get me promoted. I'll see you tomorrow.
And you did?
And that was it. I didn't get promoted.
Oh.
I got 175 quid a week, which I was happy about at the time. But it was more just getting that, it's just the person, it was great. I got back to Carl, I was back at home with Faye, my mum and my sister, and I was back doing something I loved, and I was home and it was just easy, but I still had this, it wasn't like the last time because I had the guy telling me, like, you are going to be good. And the best thing that happened to me was when I went back to Barrow, we had a group of players where everything mattered, so money was a big value then because we used to get £75 a week, but most of my team was all about like lads who had families and mortgages and bills to pay. So they looked at me as like, you better run because you're miles better than us and you're there to make my money for me. So it gave me that little bit of sense of belonging, and literally we obviously in between Halifax and we went to Singapore and we've done quite a lot, but without having them in the background I wouldn't achieve what I wanted to achieve because they made me more grounded, which gave me the push to then achieve what I achieved in.
So my action that I'm getting from this is that it's so important to, you know, almost create a new network of people that can help you, support you, open up to people, be vulnerable, because that's what you had with Kenny, right?
Yeah, it just gave me that something I needed. Look, it's very easy, everyone will say to you when you lose a parent, whoever it is, they'll say, go and make them proud. It's a really cheap, chuck out comment, go and make them proud. Well, it's what proud is. It's like, yes, he would want me to do football, but probably more happy that I've got a good, fantastic wife, 3 beautiful girls and a good career. So that's what he wants. The football's just an added add-on, do you know what I mean? He'll still tell you who's here now, he's better than me. So, I mean, brother is older than me, he'll tell you he's better than me. But it's like what is proud, but it's like doing proud is doing the right things. It's keeping his morals, what he held sacred about what he'd done, and then adding on to that, and that's what I've done. And as I said, when we talked about Leeds the other day, we had a good conversation about Leeds and stuff. I played Leeds for the very first time, and he was a massive Leeds fan. In our house, when Match of the Day was the biggest thing, and the only time you could ever watch football was Match of the Day. If he'd had 6 pints and Leeds had won, you'd hear marching on together, walking down the street, and he'd sing it to the top of his lungs till he came in the house, and then Match of the Day going, and he'd sing it all the way through. That's when Leeds were pretty good, and that he Leeds with his team. So the first time he ever played him, to actually walk into Ellen Road was really emotional, because you were like sitting there thinking like he not being able to see it and walking in and hear him sing that song in that stadium is like, oh God. It was the first time I've ever nearly cried on a pitch, because it was like that emotional. It was really weird, because it was like, I wish you'd have seen this. We actually got beat, but that's not quite happy.
Let's skip that part.
Yeah, but then this is what I'm saying. So this is the thing about grief. As it gets further on, you understand that was the emotion then. So being in front of that stand, them singing that song, you getting emotional. Fast forward 2 years later, I go back to the stadium, and I'm now freaking the Leeds fans out, because I'm now singing the song with them, because I've got past that process and actually realised, well, he'd have loved to see me stand in the middle of this pitch. So I was now standing there watching them singing the song, freaking them all out, actually singing the song with them, and we beat them up there. No, we didn't get beat. No, we got beat.
We beat them?
No, we got beat 2-1, Fraser Foster.
We beat them?
No, I scored though. I scored. Fraser Foster. It's funny because Fraser Foster played the game and Paul Lambert was the longest time. I know we're not doing football chat, but that game.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. So that game I scored, and I was really happy because we scored against Leeds, and Fraser Foster gave the ball away, and Paul Lambert for 25 minutes kept going back to him and going, please tell me what you've done with your kick. And he explained it, and then he went back to someone else, and he went back to him. For 25 minutes he ridiculed Fraser Foster, and I was thinking, I've just scored at Ellen Road, so I couldn't really give a crap after.
Holty, do you think that, you know, I know you said there, being at Ellen Road, hearing that song was so emotional and special for you. Do you think that the loss of your father has affected your performance either positively or negative in your career? Because I've coined this phrase called the 1-0 down mentality, right? And I feel like...
Because you support Norwich?
Yes. Mate, come on.
I'm a Carlisle fan, so...
All of the best games in football are the ones where you come from behind, always. They're the most historic ones, the ones you see on TV. And I feel like once you're through that first year, 2, 3, 5, it might be 10 years, all of a sudden you use it as a fuel to your fire. So is that maybe what you saw with your grief on the pitch at all?
I think in terms of football, it changed. The first one was like, right, can I abide by a certain set of rules that you used to give, which is always work hard. So his rule was always run around, kick people, Carlisle mentality, work hard and see what takes you. The rest was added onto it. If you can finish, you can do this, you can do that, then that's added on. But because of working back, look, Carlisle is a place where you finish school, you don't get GCSEs, you go and get a job. That was how it worked. You got a job, you fried your country, you went to the local pub, that was it. You played on the Sunday morning, you played for the vets, you had the best team, and that's how we done. The best thing ever happened to me was 15-year-old when I got released from Carlisle and stuff. I used to play with men, where men was men, and you went to Sunday morning, they walk out with a cigarette, Vaseline on, DP, and it stunk. And that's what football was. And then after that you went to the pub, your dad had a couple of pints, the boys go in the back garden, used to play on the bowling green and get kicked off. And that's what you learned football was. And then I kind of abided by it. I was never the best footballer. I wasn't the most technical, I wasn't the most gifted, but I used to work my arse, and that's what people loved. And that was what he brought. The only thing I used to do with my dad was I used to always do a prayer before, and it wasn't really a prayer, it was always used to speak to him a little bit about, like, hopefully I'll do this today, keep me safe, blah blah blah, and just a general quick one in the toilets before. And it wasn't for any reason, it was just more having a conversation with you, see, like, this is what I'm going to do today, and kind of have a conversation. And I think it worked a little bit because it kind of then shifted my mindset. I could joke and laugh and everything to like literally kick off. But the moment the whistle blew, I just changed into a different person, because football's a release where we talk about this charity, and this is why I'm keen about it really. Because I had my release, I had my football, you got 90 minutes on a football pitch, you don't have to think of anything in the world apart from that game. That is it, you can switch off, do whatever you want. Training was brilliant for me. Walked out, the moment I got to the training ground, it was like your best mates were there, you had a laugh and a joke, you went training, you done your thing. You can just switch off. And I was very lucky that was my advice, and that got me through that thing. Then kids came along and ruined it because you can't sleep and they put lots of pressure on you. But that changed the mindset. The best thing about football is that we played Ipswich here and I scored the hat-trick.
Don't swear, that's another 50 quid.
Sorry, yeah. We played Ipswich, it's actually
50 quid.
I can't change it to 5 So it was quite interesting because when we walked up the stairs, like it's the first time Faye's been back and actually been in the old players' lounge, which is downstairs, which we used to always go in. And we played that team from down the road. Is that better?
That's me, 50 quid.
Yeah. And then I walked in there afterwards, and it's like, I scored this like amazing thing, hat-trick, no one ever done it, everyone's buzzing, I didn't really know. And I walked through the players' lounge door, and literally, by the time I got 2 steps, Eric could have flew the ball past my head with a kick. Then Evie runs up and goes, you need to get me a drink because Mum's not moving, and blah blah blah. And literally, like, life just changed in an instant because the kids were there. And it's like, it's one of the things, but that was me. Like, my Sundays with my dad was literally like, your dad's playing football, you're going. There was no thing, it was like Sunday morning's football, and it's like, you read it back a little bit, what is life? It's like, you look at it and think, he just wanted to be happy, so he made things that made him happy, and I do things that would make me happy. And that's why I still play for the vets now, because it still takes me back to that time of actually staying with him, going for a pint afterwards, and you kind of relate to stuff.
And that's why it's so important to take our hand in what they do, right? It's so important to have that release, to focus on something else for a bit, just to have your 90 minutes of peace each week, right? It's vital.
Well, you know, you've been with me loads. I can't sit down and be in peace anyway because I'm a pain in the neck. So for me to have a counsellor at that time to actually sit down and I wouldn't have told them, I'm from Carlisle. We don't speak. if I turned on to one of my mates and started talking about my grief, be like, you're on a laugh and went for a beer, he'd walk off. That's how it was. And I had my release, and I said I'm very fortunate it was football, and everyone knew about I played football, and everyone wanted to make me the best. But I think that's why it is, because it's really important that when you get to that moment and things are, you never switch off. Even though you look like you're switched off and you're not thinking about that scenario, you're always thinking about the scenario. You always think about what if, and if he was here, and I wish he'd missed this. And it still goes on. Like, you have moments, and talking about Eric, you're scoring goals, different things in the goals, and one's in a play, and you think, oh, if only you'd seen that.
Did you think that at Norwich, all of those iconic goals against the biggest clubs in the world, you know, United?
I think it was being in the Premier League, that was the one.
That made you think, oh,
yeah,
God,
you're on Match of the Day, and you start thinking, oh, I'll be singing it all. Leeds weren't in then, obviously, because they're now crap, but they're not. But it was them moments, and we were talking about Rob's the right snob. He was telling me before about his dad took him to Ajax and Bayern Munich and this and the other. I said I went to Wigan, Burnley, and I was like, but Wigan's still a dive anyway. I don't like Wigan, but they're the memories you have. It's like, it's not about big massive things, about holidays and this and the other. It's like, remember sliding down the bank at Wigan on a Tuesday night and like just got the day off. Do you know what I mean? And I talk about, like, the thing about my dad was he's like a really hard working thing, and he always talked about the 1990 World Cup. This was the thing when I knew it was a massive, I never really knew how big football was. This was the day, and it was the only time I ever seen him late for work in my whole life. And he went, I ain't missing these penalties. And it was the only time when I knew it was a big important thing in the life that actually he told me he was going to miss like work for this 99 World Cup. And that's why I always say, anyone says what was the best World Cup, I always say 99, because he was like, that memory really is so big. And I think when someone says that to you, you make that kind of go round. But
they say that grief gets easier with time. What about now, Holty? You're a confident lad, you give it large, but is there moments where you think, oh, I'm struggling? Because as a kid, it's obvious, right? But as an adult, it also impacts you.
It never goes, because it's always, yeah, it never really is. So you try and make
what are those occasions?
Sister's wedding.
The empty chair, hey?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't that big of a chair, but what do you mean? Sister's wedding, having to walk down the aisle.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Girls' birthdays. Usual stuff. Weddings. I was alright, I was spoiled because Faith Mum had a cup of tea and she kept banging the thing, so she pissed the speech up anyway. So. All the moments that everyone thinks about, they're the moments. And you can't get round it, you never will. You'll never change it, they'll pop up, they'll grab you. Stupid stuff, matching together comes on. Free kicks, headers, used to like come out with black eyes every week because he was a centre half back in them days. I once seen him 2 foot someone and put him over a barrier, which was quite good at Gretna. And that was quite good, so I must get the aggression from him. But the creep up on you when you know it's like you lost your mum.
Yeah.
It's moments where you don't expect it.
100%. The little things, right?
Yeah, and when you have kids, it's even worse.
Yeah.
Because they just kill you and bring you back to reality, where it's like, that's why. Do you know what I mean? We're very fortunate. We speak about my granddad quite a lot. I mean, Mum speaks about it quite a lot. It's quite. What did Evie say? Nana said he died of the other day. He ate a dodgy grape or something. So we got the story. We never heard this story the other day, by the way. So my brother had told Evie that my dad had ate a dodgy grape and that's why he died or something. And then my mum confirmed it stupidly. And then Evie said, I didn't eat a grape for 5 years, just in case. And you're like, that's not what you tell a 9-year-old daughter to like things. So I was like, I have to have a chat about my mum with that.
I think this was going to be like all really emotional, but you made me laugh.
Which is just a bit white, but then
you need to find the light in the dark as well. That's important.
You've got to laugh. The stories we tell is always about holidays. The funniest story ever was we went to Benidorm. He was anal about holidays.
You stink of Benidorm.
Yeah, dude. Absolutely. Carlisle Benidorm at its finest. Good. When it was cheap then, when you can go in and you just get 35p a pint that day. You get chips, look at everyone laughing, look, chips for £1, a little bit of curry sauce on the side, got you another 50 pence. And we went there, and I always remember he used to love his breakfast, loved his breakfast, and I remember he came down and he'd done this whole fucking big meal breakfast thing, and he just slipped on the top step. And it's like a scene out of Fawlty Towers because he had it all on this tray and he's like bouncing and going down. And I've never laughed so much, but he had that anger about him where you never knew if to truly laugh or not because he's really got to turn on you. And it was just one of them stories that you keep telling. He never ate rice. This is how weird he is, right? He never ate rice until he was like 39, right? And he never ordered a meal in a restaurant. My mum had to order his meal. And then somehow for the night it was my mum's fault. And then this one day, we'd gone to it wasn't Benidorm actually, it was Cyprus this one. We'd upmarket, yeah. He got a promotion at work, I don't know if it worked, I don't know. And we went to Cyprus and we waited that long for this food that they brought. It was curry, you used to always have curry and extra hot. I don't know why. And then they brought it in, but he always said, I only want chips, I hate rice. And we waited that long that there was no chips, they only brought him rice. And he ended up he's like nudging my mum going, you need to have a conversation. My mum's like, I've been waiting an hour, George, you'll have the rice. And he ate this rice, and you could see he's like through gritted teeth. But you know, like someone's eating their rice, and then halfway through the meal, he's looking, thinking, I can't tell everyone I'm enjoying this rice, but I actually enjoyed this rice. And then at the end, he cleaned the whole lot of the things. He's like, well, I had nothing else to eat, and after that day, he then ate rice. But he still never said that he liked rice all the way through. He just turned from like that to the rice. He's just stubborn.
Do you like to talk about your dad? Do you like to talk about all those funny things? That's important,
I think you
isn't it?
need to eventually, because you'll always cry. There'll be a time you cry. We were saying it the other day. I was in where was I the other day? I was driving. The song came on, and it was
Benidorm?
What, the theme tune?
Back in Benidorm?
Do you know the theme tune to Benidorm? I can't remember what it was now. Anyway, there was a song came on. It was maybe Bohemian Rhapsody or some other one of them things. And he came on to remind me of him. And he's like, you get a little bit emotional when he starts telling the girls about it. But then you've got to think, well, I had enough time when he told me enough things. So as long as I can implement what he told me, then there's a little bit. And I'll look at my hands and realise they're exactly the same as his was, which is quite scary. My chin's are getting old. I always said when he died that if I make past 43, I win. And it's the first time I ever beat him at anything. So. I kind of, and that's quite scary that I've actually put that in, that he was 43, I want to get to 44, and if I do that, I've won. He was a man where we once played, he used to play football with us all the time. He's a centre half, he's only 5'11", but he's tenacious, right? We got to the point where we got a little bit older. Stephen's 3 years older than me. So he used to play with his mates were like 16, 17, now he's only 40. But he got to the point where we had to stop asking him, because he used to come and 2 foot all the kids. So we had to stop him. And then I always remember one day we were playing this game and no one had told him. We came out and literally he was like, do you remember the film Kes?
No,
So you might
was that
not know,
black and
yeah.
white?
You're posh, you're from Norwich. Has anyone not got much money in here who remembers Kes? Yeah, there we go, at the back there. It's like a poor film. And there was this teacher who was like Bobby Charlton he wanted to be, and he bullied all the kids and scored the... And that's my dad, when we played. And he came down, and the first thing he done was told my brother off because he didn't invite him. The second thing he done was kick me because I didn't invite him as well. And he won the game and was so excited that he actually won, he celebrated and walked off. And you think, like, you're a 36-year-old man.
That is brilliant.
But it taught me a lesson. Don't lose.
Wow, I didn't expect this interview to be like this. Holty, my final question for you is, what would a Grant Holt now, 60 years old, I've been waiting for that all week. What would
Dad's over there as well, and he's just...
What would Grant Holt now say to an 18-year-old Grant Holt? If you could put your arm around him and say something to support him through grief, what would you say to him?
Oh God, you've got a bit deeper there, aren't you?
I'm good. We need to raise money.
Yeah. Oh God.
3 things?
Do you know something? I think if I could actually turn back now and say, I'd probably say be alright.
You'll be alright.
Yeah. Just do what you do, be yourself. Learn what I taught you. Take little bits, be your own person, but take little bits. And see where you go, because it's a journey. And that's where he was. My dad got offered to be a professional when he's a worker. it's just things come back. He was 18. He was 19-year-old. He got offered to. No, he'd have been older than that. 21 had been. He got the chance to go to Workington when they were in the Football League then. He turned up at Workington and that was like a proper dive. And the apprentices had to clean the kit then. And you seen this guy doing this like kit on a like old metal thing, kind of washing it. And he got the chance to be professional. So he literally got offered the chance to go and be professional football, which is in Carlisle is rare. There's only 2 teams. And he got offered it. And then the same day he got offered it, he walked in on the Friday and my mum told him she was pregnant. And he turned around and went, that's fine then, I'll go and be a paint and decorate because it's more money. And he left his dream. Just went, that's it, that's done.
Wow.
And then, so if you look at that, you think, well, that's the measure of a person. So if you get a smidgen of that and move forward, then I'll be alright.
Holty, incredible. Thanks so much for your time.